Because this is the thing, Hamid, we have been analyzing the war, right? And the reasons behind the war. Some people might think, yeah, okay, but what is your alternative? The Ukrainians don't have the right to national sovereignty and things like this.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to answer that as well. This war is not about the self-determination of Ukraine. It's about, as you say, the interests of the ruling class of Russia, the interest of the ruling class of the West and the United States in particular, and also the interest of the oligarchs in Ukraine. You see, since the restoration of since the fall of Stalinism, the restoration of capitalism in Ukraine, this has been a massive disaster for the people of Ukraine, for the people of Russia, and the rest of the former Soviet Union republics. Massive collapse of living standards, the destruction of cultural levels, life expectancy, everything. And in Ukraine in particular, gangs of oligarchs, the Akhmetov, Poroshenko's and Kolomoisky, all these people basically looted state property. They took over mines, steel factories, football teams, whole regions were in the hands of different gangs of oligarchs. These different gangs of oligarchs have alternated in power. Some of them pro-Western, some of them pro-Russian, all of them playing with a national question, which in Ukraine is extremely complicated because there is one section of the ruling class, which is the Ukrainian reactionary nationalists that base themselves on World War II Nazi collaborators that carried out pogroms. And then there's another gang, the pro-Russian, which base themselves on the ancient imperial Russian empire, Catherine the Great, and all of these myths. And they base themselves on the language division inside Ukraine. And any government that comes to power on the basis of one group against the other will destroy Ukraine, as has been proven since 2014. And the only solution really for working people of Ukraine is to overcome this national division and to unite along class lines. Russian-speaking, Ukrainian-speaking, Romanian-speaking, Hungarian-speaking. There's all sorts of national groups and ethnic groups in Ukraine. And the only way that Ukraine can really exist is by the unity of the working class. And not only the unity of the working class in Ukraine, but brotherly, sisterly relations with the working class in Russia. Not with Putin, who represents the interest of the ruling class, but with the workers in Russia who speak the same language, many of them, or a language that's close to them, that have common cultural background and so on. When is the only time that Ukrainian culture was allowed to flourish? And the first years of the Soviet Union, where Ukrainian language was spread, was codified, and the interest was not the money-grabbing interest that divides the working class along national lines, but the genuine internationalism based on the respect amongst different peoples. And this was all destroyed. First of all, destroyed by Stalinism, then destroyed by the oligarchs, and finally used in a cynical manner by the United States imperialism and Biden and previous administrations as a battering ram against Russia. If you do not understand this whole background to the war, then you'll end up with solutions that are not solutions that don't solve anything. No one is interested in national sovereignty of Ukraine. No one in Paris, London, Berlin, or Washington. They're not interested in that at all. That's not the reason they're fighting. They're just cynically using the Ukrainian people in order to carry out a war against the rival imperialist power in Russia, in order to weaken Russia for their own cynical geostrategic interest, for the control of areas of influence, markets, sources of raw materials. This is the real meaning of this war. And the only real solution to this war is, one, the Ukrainian people must unite along class lines and rise up against their own oligarchs and their own government that's throwing them into this war that can't be won for someone else's interest. The people of Russia, the workers of Russia, must also take control over their own country, and they will have no interest in attacking the Ukrainian people. But at the same time, they want to defend Russia against a threat from the West, which is completely understandable. And finally, the working people in the West, in the United States, in Europe, we are not interested in this war. In fact, we are being made to pay Austerity measures are being introduced in our own countries in order to pay the rearming of Europe. In Britain, this week, the finance minister, she's just proposed a whole new number of measures that increase military spending directly at the cost of payments to the poorest and weakest and most vulnerable people in society. What is this for? This is not in order to prevent a Russian invasion, which is not going to happen. It's in order to preserve the power, the clout of European imperialism so that they can force Latin American countries or African countries or Middle Eastern or East European countries into submission. They need to spend more in weapons. And this money for weapons is going to be, which is not in our interest. We have nothing to do with exploiting people in other countries. This money is going to be taken directly from our pockets, from the education budget, from the healthcare budget, from the pensions, from the disability benefits, and so on.